Hi, this is Tamsen Granger.
This is Dan Abuhoff.
With Tamsen and Dan read the paper on Sunday, June 28th, 2020.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
We're coming up on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
How are we going to do that, 4th of July?
I don't know.
I mean, usually we're in big crowds, right?
Not you and I.
Whoa, come on. You go to the beach, you go to some fireworks, you're in a crowd, a huge crowd. So this will be kind of the antithesis of that.
Yeah.
You know, did you hear in New York, Macy's going to do fireworks all over the place and not tell anybody when they're going to happen?
Right. That's the way you keep the
so
crowds
this
down.
really sneaks up.
Yeah.
The thing is, people have already jumped the gun. There are fireworks going off every night in New York.
Yeah.
And people are kind of sick of fireworks.
Right.
They can't sleep at night.
Yeah.
People are getting injured. Fireworks are coming in the window.
That was a real problem. When we lived on 100th Street, the fireworks that were associated with 4th of July would go on until like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning,
let's not
3
talk
in the
about
morning.
that.
It was a headache.
It was a headache.
It was annoying. And we mentioned it to the police once, and they said, yeah, what are we going to do about that? And I kind of sympathized with them. What are they going to do? So they're proving that point now.
Right.
Hewing to their approach. So here's what we've done. We've been to restaurants. We went to 2 different restaurants this week.
We jumped on it.
We
Finally,
ate out.
Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
Yeah, and in our
opening up the restaurants.
In our responsible approach, to cover everything, we went once in Pennsylvania and then once in New Jersey. So we've covered the globe. And look, there have been a lot of articles about that. I'll give the Times credit for the best headline. Their headline is, "Welcome to Applebee's. Can I get you started with some disinfectant?" That's a pretty good headline. The rest of the article is not interesting. And then Pete Wells had an article in the Times, a restaurant review during the week. And that was, his approach was noteworthy, in which he spoke generally about outdoor dining, which is what they're doing in New York, and what we experienced in both New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And when it came time to the restaurant review, he said, look, I'm just not going to do a review. Because there's some pluses, some minuses, but I'm not going to say anything negative. Everybody needs a hand. I'm just thrilled and excited to be outside. That's it.
And eating.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And that's a good approach to take, I think, don't you?
Right. Although we did have very good meals. And
one better than the other.
Yeah, but please. We just, of course, since it's outdoor dining, although indoor dining at reduced capacity is starting up soon.
But we haven't done that.
It makes you a little nervous because it's that time of year when thunderstorms can crop up.
We had good weather
at any moment.
We had good weather,
but we lucked out.
Yeah.
We
had a beautiful evening on a Thursday night, and it was quiet, and it's a pastoral spot in Pennsylvania, and it really could have been nicer. And what they did that was smart was they sort of recalibrated the menu a little bit to have a little bit fancier dishes, but a little bit simpler. And I think under these circumstances, perhaps simpler is better, and it was fine. It was great. Yeah. And then the next night we were in Princeton.
Princeton was hopping.
Yeah.
In Princeton they have narrowed Witherspoon Street so that restaurants can put some outdoor dining like almost in the street.
And there were tons of people.
And there
were
tons of
walking
people
around. Would have horrified some, I suppose, but that's the way it was.
But it was nice to be around people.
Yes.
And I would say I didn't feel infringed on health-wise at any point.
Yeah.
There was still plenty of room for everyone.
Yeah.
But,
and you couldn't get into these restaurants which had the outdoor dining. You had to have a reservation, which we did. Many people came up and said, "This is great. Can I sit outside?" They said no. Right. Because they have lesser capacity and they're filling it.
But it was really nice to sit down and let other people do all the work.
Yeah. Right. Well, you would feel that more than I.
And also, we could all sit down and order whatever we wanted. We didn't have to eat whatever Tamsen prepared. Okay, so you had choices. It was
very relaxed. It was very nice. Look, I'll just say this: we can argue the politics of this one way or another. The food's better at home. The food that you make is better than what we got at these restaurants. And generally, what we get better at restaurants. Right. No, I'm not talking about the price.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm
not.
Come
on.
The food is much better. But it is nice for everyone to be relaxed and to have a drink and look around. Sure.
And see and talk to other people.
I'm not saying we're not going to go out. It's fine. It was good to get out.
Yes, we have dipped our toes into the reentry.
Right.
And so far, so good.
So far, so good. So
we're very lucky. We live in a beautiful, touristic area. Really.
I mean, yes. That's and we were talking about that on Thursday night with Armand. Yeah. I think he said, "Look, we're in a bubble in Bucks County. It's so fantastic here." So it's true. Here's something that's a little bit of an issue: ballpark peanuts. And I'm learning a lot, in the pandemic with all the economic fallout. It takes you into areas that you didn't know about. There's such a thing as ballpark peanuts. It's a particular type of peanut. It's called the Virginia peanut.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's got a certain shape.
How is it different
It's got a certain quality of shell. It's, there's something to opening it, but it's not that tough to open. It's got great flavor. It's a special kind of peanut. Most peanuts don't make that grade. 80% of them don't make that grade. And you know what happens to those peanuts that don't make the grade, generally speaking? They're ground down into peanut butter. That's where most peanuts end up. But when we
buy roasted peanuts in the shell
those
in the grocery store,
those are ballpark peanuts.
Okay.
But most of the 2.3 million pounds of in-shell peanuts consumed during a typical baseball season are, quote, languishing in cold storage, waiting like the fans for an opening day at the park that is unlikely to come. They were supposed to be sold for $4 or $5 a bag. It's not going to happen unless baseball gets going, which is a whole different subject, and it's highly doubtful.
I feel bad for the peanut guys, but I feel happy for myself. The price of peanut butter is going to plummet. Won't that be great?
Well, the price of peanut butter won't plummet because, again, the Virginia peanuts only accounted for
But you
for
can
20%.
take them, you can repurpose them.
All right, well, let me reorient you, okay?
They're languishing in storage.
Let's be clear, you should feel bad about it.
And we're all into comfort food. What greater comfort food is there than PB&J?
All right. Let's take things one thing at a time, because you obviously haven't been studying this. Point one is that the people who are in trouble are not the people who grow the peanuts, it's the people who roast the peanuts, because all the contracts to sell the peanuts were done before all this happened. So it's the roasters who are holding the peanuts. The peanut growers are okay.
All right.
That's number one.
Roast them and grind them.
And they talked to this guy, Tom Nolan, and his quote is, "We're basically left holding the peanuts." Now, I'm saying to myself, the guy couldn't say we're left holding the bag. He couldn't come up with that. He's left holding the peanuts. That's a little weak on his part. But in any event, what are you going to do with those special peanuts? And then they tell the whole story, by the way, of how ballpark peanuts came to be, how peanuts were associated with baseball. And it goes back to Harry Stevens, who actually came up with this great slogan. He used to sell scorecards. Here's his slogan. You ready for this? You can't tell the players without a scorecard. How's that for a slogan?
Right.
That sold a lot of scorecards. And he became the peanut guy because he was in the scorecard business and he started selling peanuts along with them. Okay, that's not that interesting.
Well, I thought it was going to relate to peanuts. But
how about this?
Tells me about
Take Me Out to the Ball Game, which famously associated peanuts with baseball, was written in 1908. Goes back that far. Written while this guy was taking the subway past the Polo Grounds.
Oh, really?
Isn't that something? So I got scored there. But these people, I won't go into detail, but the guys in the peanut...
You already have.
The guys in the article, the peanut people, are crying at the prospect of the Virginia peanuts being ground down into peanut butter. They say, I would liken that to using a really fine beef tenderloin to make ground beef. You can do it. And it would make great peanut butter, but it would be a great economic loss. No one wants to grind these peanuts.
Well, it's better than throwing them out.
I tell you want to know what's funny? Why people are consuming so many peanuts and peanut butter now more than they normally do outside of the ballpark? Here's something you never thought about. I didn't, at least. It's kids. And you know why they're eating more peanuts?
Because they're not going to school?
Right, and because in school they can't have peanuts because of the peanut allergies.
Oh, okay.
But at home, no one's got peanut allergies, or very few people.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So
you know if someone does. And you,
All right. So there might go. Okay. I've said all I had to say on that. I'm done.
All right. So I have an interesting...
we'll see.
I know. It's not museum, but it is art.
Yes. It's museum. It's a ding.
All right. Museum update.
Yes.
Actually, so as we know, there's been a lot of controversy about monumental sculptures in the past month or so. And the latest one being held up to scrutiny is a sculpture of Theodore Roosevelt at the entrance to the American Museum of Natural History. So there's an article about that in the New York Times by Holland Carter, art critic to the New York Times. And it's basically, and it has a couple of different headlines. One is Seeing Monuments in a New Day's Light. Basically, he's talking about monuments as a way to teach. The problem with the Roosevelt statue is not, contrasting that to the, statues of the Confederate heroes. Right. In Richmond or elsewhere. It's not about the guy. Right. He is complex. Right. There are a lot of, questionable aspects of his personality. But in this case, it's really the optics of the sculpture itself. Sculpture was done in 1940 by James Earl Fraser. 24 feet high. Massive equestrian sculpture, Teddy sitting on a horse in command, alert, forward thinking, ready to do what he's got to do. And below him, he is flanked by a Native American and an African American, dressed somewhat in native clothing.
Is it an African American or an African?
African. I should say African. It's not clear because to some extent the explanation is that these are allegorical figures representing Africa and America. Right. The problem is this, it seems to be a picture of white superiority. You have the white man way up here and the African and Native American way down below. They are both carrying rifles, but we still don't understand who they are. Right. Are they gun bearers? Are they the security detail? We don't know. And there's not a good explanation. There is a quote by somebody saying the artist says that they really express Roosevelt's friendliness to all races. But really,
you pointed out to me that it's not even the artist quote that counts. These are commissioned works.
A monumental sculpture like this is commissioned by someone, some committee. Right. The artist is generally told what will be depicted. Right. In fact, probably given some kind of program of how to do that. It's not an expression of the artist's belief or vision of what he's doing. He's paid to represent these people.
Well, that was news to me. You also pointed out to me that it's not considered a great sculpture.
No, nobody, have you ever heard of James Earl Fraser?
Well, no, but I don't know what that...
Well, some of his work.
Do I?
Yes, actually, he designed the Buffalo nickel. Oh. Remember when we all used to collect Buffalo nickels? Oh, yeah. And he's done other works, including one of his early works was actually a tribute to the Native American. It's, what was it called? End of the Trail or something like that. And it did kind of embody an image of pushing the Native Americans out of the country into the Pacific Ocean. And he's done, for people around here, they would know the massive Ben Franklin sculpture in the Franklin Institute. So he's just not a household word, is what I would say. And he did everything in a neoclassical style, which... not everybody's cup of tea, not always in fashion, but it looks good in front of neoclassical buildings where most of these sculptures are. Anyway, Cotter writes a persuasive argument that, it shouldn't be the image that greets people to a natural history museum, But it should be somewhere in the museum representing... how does he put it? As an outsized ethnological specimen, the product of a specific era and culture, now subject to critical evaluation in, a different era and culture. Okay, so that I have to say I pretty much agree with. Okay, right. I am not for destroying art. Okay, I'm not for judgments about what is great and what is little and destroying it. Last time somebody seriously did that, Hitler. Remember all the art he destroyed, calling it degenerate art. Right. Okay, so let's not go down that path. Cotter brings up another interesting aspect, though, that there are some monuments that may be problematic in their imagery, but they happen to be great works. They happen to represent the output of a more significant artist. And case in point is the memorial to Robert Gould Shaw in Boston, on the Boston Commons. You've probably walked by it. And it's a memorial to Robert Gould Shaw and the Massachusetts 54th Regiment. And this was done by Augustus St. Gaudens in 1897. Okay, Shaw was the leader of an all-black volunteer Union Army brigade, okay, that marched to South Carolina and died. In a battle, much of the regiment died, including Shaw himself. He was buried in a mass grave with his soldiers, okay? And this sculpture, it's a relief bronze, and it's pretty magnificent. Okay. So, on a case-by-case basis, you're going to look at these monuments and you're going to have to decide, what is it they are saying? Do we treat this in an ethnological way, or do we also treat it as, an artistic production? The minute I was reading about this, it reminded me of another sculptor. Okay, because another sculptor who depicted Robert Gould Shaw in the 19th century was Edmonia Lewis. Okay, I don't even know if I'm saying her name right, but she did a bust of Robert Gould Shaw. She was living in Boston at the time. She was being supported by abolitionists, and she earned enough money to kickstart her sculpture career. She was a fascinating woman. She was also the first professional African-American sculptor in the United States. Okay, she has a fascinating, crazy history. Her father was, how should I say that, Afro-Haitian. Her mother was Native American. I can't even say this. Mrs. Aqua Ojibwe. I apologize for that. And African American. Both of her parents die before she is 9 years old, and she's raised by aunts. She's living up at Niagara Falls. They're making baskets and moccasins for tourists. The name she uses is Wildfire. Her half brother is called Sunshine. He's a little bit older. He becomes a barber. But anyway, somehow she goes to school. She goes to Oberlin College. There's a crazy scandal there involving whether she might have poisoned some fellow students. And she goes from there, ends up in Boston, and she's being supported by the abolitionists, and she raises this money that enables her to go to Rome. She wants to go to Rome. Yeah. She wants to go to Italy. Because there she can be an artist.
And that's what happens, right?
Yeah. In Boston, she's the darling of the abolitionists. They're supporting her as a human rights endeavor kind of thing, human interest. She goes to Rome. She, develops a great studio, and she has an amazing career for the time as a woman, as a Black woman. She also sculpts her own marble. What you may not realize is a lot of sculptors don't. They do the clay model or the plaster cast model, and then fabricators take over, whether it's bronze or marble or whatever. She learned to sculpt, and she created her own marble sculptures. One of the most famous is Forever Free, done in 1867. It represents the emancipation of Black people. It's a Black man and woman. And that has some controversial interpretations as well. But she has a significant career. She's commissioned by Ulysses S. Grant to do his portrait at a certain point. She ends up, she's also a neoclassical style artist. That goes out of style. Her popularity wanes and she moves to England and dies in London. But a crazy, fascinating life. There's much more to her. I'm only giving you a taste.
Okay.
But interesting that some of these discussions are starting other conversations that are even more fascinating.
Okay, so this is another left turn. I think we talked about this a long time ago. I certainly remember reading about it a long time ago, 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago.
Right.
And that is that there's the possibility of using as a vaccination against COVID-19 the polio vaccine, which sounds crazy. Sounds crazy.
But
you
explain this to me. The polio vaccine will actually protect you from other stuff?
Yeah. Yes, it protects you against other viruses.
But not for long. Not for a lifetime, or they don't know.
It's not clear. It's not clear, but at the very least, they figure for a couple of months or something like that. And for that reason, there is some serious advocacy for giving people the polio vaccine. In particular, we're talking about the Sabin vaccine. And so what happens is people are digging into this now, and they're telling a story again of how we came up with the polio vaccine. And what you had was the Sabin vaccine used a live virus. The Salk vaccine, which is even better known before, did not use a live virus, but it was done by injection. And there was some concern about using the live virus, even though the Sabin vaccine was cheaper and it was in a sugar cube. It was easy to do. And
it was scary injecting.
Right.
live.
But you remember taking the Sabin vaccine, as do I.
Yeah.
So I'm saying to myself, gee, but what's the controversy? We all took the Sabin vaccine. But here's what happened. It turns out that the U.S. couldn't get over the hump on this. But Soviet Union could.
Couldn't get off the schneid?
No. Off the schneid means something a little bit different. But off the schneid just means you haven't scored a run yet. They couldn't get going. Okay. But in any event, so here's what happened. It all comes back to this this family. There are these two doctors who are married in Russia. I'll try to get the names right. Dr. Marina Voroshilova and Dr. Mikhail Shumakov. And they're big advocates of the live virus vaccine, the Sabin-like vaccine. And unlike their colleagues in the United States of America, they have a little more freedom to experiment, apparently. They don't have so many rules and regulations. So who do they try it out on? They try it out on their kids. So U.S. won't use it.
Life is cheap in Russia? Is that what we're learning?
They don't have a lot of rules.
Oh, my God.
So they actually go and they give it to all their kids, and they do extremely well with it. And,
well, thank goodness.
And so there are two things that come out of it. Not only do they do well with it, it kills, it immunizes them against polio. But the mother notices immediately it immunizes them against everything else. And she ends up giving it to the kids every year to knock out all the viruses they might get. So she's onto this from the very beginning. Okay. In the late 1950s. That's number one. But here's the best part. Number two, all the kids, the two doctors I mentioned were called virologists. All the kids become virologists. All the kids on whom this was, who were subject to the experiments, become virologists. And become virologists who actually do this technique, test things on themselves. They say it's the best way to do it. Okay? And not only that, but they're all quite prominent. I'm not going to read all their names and all the jobs they have. I'll just focus on one of them, whose name is Dr. Konstantin Shumakov. And guess what he is? He's the Associate Director of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's Office of Vaccine Research and Review. He's in the U.S. And he's saying, yeah, this stuff is great. You don't have to go crazy with it. You can use it on your kids as far as I'm concerned. I'm one of those kids. And he was asked now if he approves of his parents' experiment. And he said, yeah. It was the right thing to do. Now there would be questions like, did you get permission from the ethics committee? We didn't worry about that. And it did a whole lot of good. Well, the guy who's leading the charge for this is a guy named Gallo, who's mentioned in the article, Dr. Robert Gallo, and followed up the next day in a letter to the editor published in the New York Times saying this is exactly what we should be doing. We should be distributing the Sabin vaccine to people. It costs 2 cents to administer. And let's go. And
I'm in.
He was starting to do it.
So we should definitely take it, right?
Well, I don't know.
But I mean,
it's being held up. It's being held up by some group in the United States.
But I mean, it would protect us from a lot of stuff.
That's what they say. You know what the concern is? They're looking into now whether having all this live vaccine in people's systems will find its way into the wastewater and create polio virus. And
that would make a great movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The wheels are turning.
Well, that's where they are with this now. But I think you're going to hear more about this.
Okay. Speaking of movies.
Yes. Go ahead.
So we've been watching. We've been hungering for theater.
Yeah.
And we've tried watching things on the somewhat small screen.
Yeah, we've done right. Yeah.
Well, I didn't think we watched Kinky Boots.
Oh, we watched that was very mediocre.
A film of Kinky Boots, the Broadway musical.
That would be mediocre in person too.
But even so, it wasn't great quality.
Right.
Actually, my one success was Mark turned me on to the Met Opera.
How'd you like that?
Streaming.
I did not watch that.
I watched most of Akhenaten by Philip Glass.
Yeah.
And it was done very well.
Yeah?
Yes, it was. I thought it was quite excellent.
Well, we have.
I don't know what the difference is.
We have a ton of opera on the PBS channel stuff that we got. So
right. Well, the way the Met was doing it was they would stream it for 24 hours or 23 hours, right. And then they had a whole program, and they were different productions from different years. Maybe some of the some are better than others. I don't know, but anyway, so that was pretty good. And now July 3rd. Hamilton will be streamed by Disney Plus. And so that's fun. It's always fun to see Hamilton. I wouldn't mind seeing it.
You've already seen it twice, dear.
I've seen it twice live, and both unforgettable and quite different because the first time was at the little cute public theater.
And next on Broadway.
And then next on Broadway. And there were some changes.
They weren't quite different, but yeah.
They were quite different.
Yeah.
The first time you didn't like it that much, and the second time you did. So it must have been different.
I know. Okay. Same cast. I always liked it.
Anyway, before that original cast left, they made a film.
Yeah.
Now, it's not like, somebody just set up a couple of cameras like they do at a water polo game.
Right.
But they actually put some thought into all the camera action, etc. And nonetheless, it cost less than $10 million to make that film.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
And so, but they managed to do that, with the resources they had available.
Right.
And then they shopped it around, and they couldn't find quite the perfect buyer.
Yeah.
And then recently, they talked
they didn't get their
Disney
price.
Plus
They didn't get their price, but now they got their price. So now
$75 million buckos.
Good for them.
And it only cost $10 million to make. I don't even know how you run up $10 million. Just
the headline is the $75 million.
Okay. So anyway, that will be exciting, and I'm glad to hear that even the original cast is getting a piece of the action. From that, because that was kind of a landmark thing. The idea that a cast, cast members can help develop, originate.
It's a workshop for a long time. Sure.
Well, but it's not just that they flesh out the character.
Yeah.
They make the character come alive, and subsequent actors and actresses kind of repeat their performance or imitate it or, maybe enhance it a little bit. But so, they're part of the creation. So they should get a piece of the pie, I think. Right. Anyway, Hamilton, July 3rd, is going to start streaming. Right. And you can watch it as many times as you
I think that's Disney Channel.
As many as you need.
Yeah.
Disney Plus.
Oh, excuse me. So,
there's all these pluses now.
Yeah. So you showed.
They're never included on your original.
Yeah, right. So
bummer.
We have it. You showed me the article. There was a follow-up. We talked about this a few weeks ago about unforgettable Broadway shows or moments in Broadway shows.
Moments from live theater.
Yes.
Live moments. Just moments.
So these are like letters people write in. And it's interesting to see what people focused on. And we had
particular
heads come
actors and actresses.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's worth going down this list. I'm sure it's not, as a matter of fact. But
there were some surprising ones.
John
Malkovich comes up several times.
Comes up twice. And that's not a surprise at all, right? It's
John
Malkovich.
I don't know.
It's John Malkovich, honey. But he, come on. John Malkovich? No surprise there. What I thought was interesting, and this is, maybe I just feel this is validation, because off the top of my head, I mentioned The Invention of Love, and you agreed with me. And sure enough, someone says Robert Sean Leonard in The Invention of Love. And it's only worth mentioning because that's a little obscure. Yeah. I mean, how many people saw The Invention of Love, ever heard of it? I was proud of myself that I remembered the name of it. Yeah. And so we're not the only ones on whom it made a great impression. The other ones, I don't know if anyone else struck you, or kind of what you'd expect.
Well, Raul Esparza. Company? We
certainly saw that, and we thought he was great in Company. There are a couple, I'd quibble with, but that's not the point of this. Whatever impresses people, right?
I think we should listen more carefully now.
Listen more carefully, too?
Because I did love The Invention of Love.
Yeah.
Okay? But it's not like I remember particular moments the way this person is.
Oh. Okay.
So I gotta...
All right. Well,
gotta hone my skills.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up. I mean, most of these things are not very specific, and frankly, there's some questionable choices. But in any event,
you weren't there. You don't know. There's such a thing as the magic and the chemistry of the moment. Don't even start talking. Don't look at it and start talking.
All right, I'm going to go into the producers, but I'm not going to.
No,
I'm not doing that.
You're not going to go hating on anybody.
All right. Okay, so here's something. You got to do some sports. It's a guy named Bryson DeChambeau, who I never heard of. He's on the golf tour. He's a young guy. And here's the deal. He's 26 years old, and apparently he's unconventional. He was a physics major at SMU, and he does things like he soaks golf balls in Epsom salts to determine their center of gravity. He signs autographs backwards with his left hand, even though he's right-handed. It's his way of underscoring that he's a total nonconformist. Well, that is what it is. But here's the latest thing that he did. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when no one was playing competitive golf, he took the 3 months that he had at his disposal, and he became a bodybuilder. He was not. And as a result of all this lifting that he did over the 90 days, he gained like 40 pounds of muscle, and he looks pretty darn big. Apparently, it's resulted in him hitting a golf ball 400 yards. Now, I will just tell you that 400 yards is unheard of. It's unheard of. Mm-hmm. That the top hitters on the tour hit 300 yards, maybe a little bit more than 300 yards. And of course, the people normally play golf, they hit 250 yards. You're playing a different game if you're hitting the ball 400 yards. Your first shot is on the green. You miss the stroke in there, right? Or you save yourself a stroke. Yeah. And in the few tournaments that have been unveiled over the last couple of weeks, he's made an impact. He's been there. I mean, he's a prime competitor. Now, the rest of his game apparently doesn't quite live up to the 400 yards, but maybe one day it will.
But if he can learn to do that, maybe he can learn the other stuff. Here's my question. Yeah. Why is there no before picture in the article? There's an after picture, but much more fun if there was before and after.
I'm sure if we got on the internet, we could.
Maybe no one took a picture of him before he
Look,
became this.
The guy who started the idea of lifting weights and building yourself that way was actually Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was a workout fanatic compared to other guys. I mean, Rory McIlroy is you know, the leader on tour. Let's say it's 160 pounds.
But why is this a surprise? Because even to the little extent that I watch baseball, they always have like the pinch hitter guys, you know, who come up and they're big. Yeah. And they're burly, and they don't look like they can run, you know, all the way around the bases. But they hit it so far, they don't have to, you know. And it's all, you know, and
let me tell you
summer softball games, same thing. You've got this big, chubby guy who hits it a ton, you know, etc. So why is this news?
This is quite the analysis. Here's the reason. Because they say, and even when in connection with DeChambeau, there's a concern about injury. There's concern that if you put so much weight on your body and you put so much muscle into your swing that it could actually hurt you in other ways. That the torque of the swing itself, the force of the swing itself, could throw your back out. They talk about in this article the fact Tiger Woods has knee problems. Was that because he did too much weightlifting?
That must be my problem.
Yes, it is. So they're concerned with DeChambeau. They say they think it's a bad thing to imitate. They think young golfers shouldn't do it.
We're looking at you, Chambeau.
Yeah, well,
all right, see where you go.
He's changing the game or not, depending on how he does. So it's nice.
So last night we're sitting around trying to figure out a film to watch.
Yes.
And Granger says, "Let's watch this." And you said, "What's it about?" And he said, "It's about a magical horse." And you were not at all enthused.
I said, we're not watching a magical horse movie. Eventually, I was won over.
Granger persisted.
Yes, Granger persisted.
And you said, okay, but this is the last magical horse movie of the year.
Exactly. We're off magical horses for a year. So this is Criterion Channel, so there's a little bit of credibility that goes with it. And it turns out, as Granger explained to me, it's a movie called Into the West, 1992, written by Jim Sheridan. Now, Jim Sheridan's kind of a big deal. He's made some great Irish movies. This is an Irish movie. This was directed by Mike Newell, again, written by Sheridan. And Sheridan wrote My Left Foot and some other movies.
The Daniel Day-Lewis
movie, which he plays, I forget what disease he had. It was quite a debilitating disease, but he becomes a great poet at the same time. And it's a fantastic movie, and it's an unbelievable performance. But Jim Sheridan's the real deal. So as soon as hear Jim Sheridan willing to give it a shot, and I hate to admit it, it was pretty good. As magical horse movies go. It was about these two children, two Irish children.
It's not about the story.
In tough circumstances.
But there were, fantastic performances by these kids.
Yeah.
Ellen Barkin was in it.
Yes, but the star was Gabriel Byrne, and Gabriel Byrne was very good. And of course...
And I couldn't understand a thing he said.
Gabriel Byrne?
Yeah, he was playing... He was Irish. He was playing... not only was he Irish, but he was a traveler.
He was a traveler.
Okay, like a gypsy.
Exactly.
Okay,
right.
So it was a complex
You couldn't understand
accent,
a thing he said.
But you don't need to.
It was a good movie. And something for those of you who have families, you can watch it with the kids. I hate to talk this way, but I will. And the kids will kind of enjoy it, but the adults will enjoy it too. It was good.
I think it resonates more with an adult.
Yeah, I think it does too. But there was a lot going on in that film.
Into the West.
Into the West, 1992. Irish
film. We're working our way, now that we've paid for Criterion.
Oh, we're going to see every classic movie.
We're going to see every movie we
ever
can.
made. We're going to get our money's worth. The jury's out as to whether we see Perry Mason tonight. That was pretty darn dark last week. I don't know about that.
I know. It's weird.
All right. So we're winding near the end. There was an article. This is just weird. It's the New York Times. It's clearly someone's listening to our podcast. They have an article today on the first page of the book section about Charles Portis, in particular about his novel True Grit. Now, 3 months ago, we were on to True Grit. And I just said to you, I've been reading about, I think I'm just going to read True Grit. It's really good. And you looked at me like, why are we talking about that? And
that's not exactly how it went. You said, I'm reading it. It's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
And I said, how could that be?
Yeah, that's very similar, I think. Yeah. And then, as it happened a few weeks later, Portis died by coincidence, so we said something else about it. And apparently the Times listened, and it takes them months to put these things together, and they got Donna Tartt, the novelist, to write an appreciation Charles Portis. And it turns out she had corresponded with him. She's from Mississippi. He's from Arkansas. And she, says, and I happen to agree with her, he's a fantastic writer, and True Grit is one of those things that you just want to read out loud. As a matter of fact, this will interest you. She did the Audible version of True Grit.
She did?
She read it. It
was really?
Unbelievably rare. It's one author, and she's well known. What was the name of that? I forget her book. Her very famous book about the bird.
Is it called The Nightingale?
The Nightingale. Yeah, something like that. Yes.
It's about the painting.
Yes.
It's very popular.
Yes, very popular. And she read his book. And that's why she called him.
The Goldfinch?
Yeah, that's exactly right. She called him to see if he would agree to her doing the Audible version of it. And she had a passage prepared and she was going to read to him. Mm-hmm. And he just chats her up. And she says, do you want to hear me read? And he says, no, you'll make a fine Maddie. I got that. You're great. That's fine. So I'll just read you quickly what Tartt says that I think is true. She says, as for the novels of Portis, they've gotten me through times of bleakness and uncertainty from 5th grade to now, and are a never-ending source of amazement, gratitude, and joy. And then she talks a bit about his great strength in getting American vernacular right and getting people from Arkansas and that part of the country perfectly. And then goes back to Portis and what a great author he was. There was no meanness in him. He understood and conveyed the grain of America in ways that may prove valuable in future to historians trying to understand what was decent about us as a nation. And I can't help thinking that the novels he's left us with will continue to provide refuge and comfort for readers, perhaps in times even darker than our own. It's a real appreciation, and I agree with that. I mean, she has him right there as one of the great American novelists, and I wouldn't argue with that. And finally, and I told you I'm going to spring a surprise on you, and it's from New York Magazine. We never talk about New York Magazine.
Although, it has some good information, but it has terrible articles.
Yes, it does. So they have a feature about people living together during the pandemic and learning about something about their partner that they didn't know before. And here's an article titled, "You Spent 5 Years Hiding That You Can Actually Cook." And it's an article, it's a back and forth, it's a dialogue between a couple named Michael and Keisha Rovner. And they're talking with each other, and she says his cooking was the main reason I agreed to marry him. And he said he understood that, she didn't know anything about cooking, she didn't have any pots or pans, and that was fine with him. And so Michael says, there have been so many times over the past 5 years where she'd beg me to make her a snack. She'd say, I'm useless in the kitchen. I'd throw something simple together. And she would react like I was Gordon Ramsay. So Keisha says, yes, before quarantine, my days at work ended at 8 or 9, sometimes later, and I was too tired to go about doing any cooking. And he didn't know I could cook. So Michael says suddenly a week into quarantine, she whips up homemade mac and cheese without a recipe. It was like witnessing someone pretend to need a wheelchair and then get up and do laps around the track. Mm-hmm. Right? And she says, yeah, I couldn't hold out anymore, and now my secret's out, but I feel good that I let him know. So here's my question to you. How would you react if suddenly, out of the clear blue, we walked into the kitchen and I started whipping something up? Because it turns out that after years of not really asserting myself in the kitchen, it turns out that I was really an expert chef. How would you react to that?
Does this have anything to do with dinner tonight?
No. Sadly, it doesn't. It doesn't have anything to do with dinner tonight.
No, well, that would be, kind of a game changer.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, because I assume, my whole value to you was really being able to put dinner on the plate.
Oh, really? No, that's not exactly.
Isn't that how it works?
No, not exactly. Not exactly. Well, look, there's no danger of that. But can you imagine this couple that they spend years together and suddenly she says, okay, enough of this. The charade is over, and she goes into the kitchen
I think
and starts
you're
making
find
mac
out
and
that
cheese.
In actuality, I can't cook.
You think so? You think so?
That's the big secret.
Well, so now
I've been doing all the cooking, but actually, I can't cook.
Really?
Yeah.
No, it's not true. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. Okay, so I'm looking forward to dinner tonight, and that wraps it up. that wraps it up.
All right, so this is Tamsen Granger.
And Dan Abuhoff.
With Tamsen and Dan reading the paper, and we'll see you again next week, I hope.